The question came out of nowhere, soft and simple, like most of the things children say without realizing how heavy they can be. Why don't you smile when you look at me? The room fell still in a way that felt almost unnatural, as if even the air had paused to listen. Emma froze by the kitchen counter, her fingers tightening around a chipped ceramic mug filled with tea she hadn't touched in over an hour. It had gone cold long ago, just like so many small things in her life she no longer noticed. The late afternoon light poured through the window, warm and golden, stretching across the table, the walls, the floor, but stopping just short of her face, as if unsure whether it was welcome there. Daniel sat at the table, his legs swinging gently beneath his chair, crayons scattered in a messy rainbow around him. He had been drawing quietly for a while, humming to himself, completely absorbed in his small world. There was something peaceful about that sound, something that usually grounded her. But not today. Today, everything felt exposed. Emma's eyes drifted slowly toward the paper in front of him. It was a drawing of their family, simple stick figures with oversized heads and uneven limbs. A bright yellow sun filled one corner, its rays stretching out in all directions. A house stood crookedly on the other side, its windows mismatched. And in the center, two figures. One with a wide, curved smile. The other with a straight, unmoving line. Her chest tightened almost instantly. "I do smile," she said quickly, too quickly, the words slipping out before she could stop them. She forced her lips upward, stretching them into something that might have passed for a smile at a glance, but felt stiff and unfamiliar on her face. Daniel tilted his head slightly, watching her with a quiet, thoughtful expression that didn't belong to someone so young. "No," he said gently. "Not like other moms." The words weren't sharp. There was no accusation in them, no intention to hurt. But they landed anyway, heavy and undeniable. Emma turned away from him, placing the mug into the sink with a soft clink that sounded louder than it should have. She reached for the faucet, turning it on just to have something to do, even though there were no dishes waiting, no real reason for the water to run. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass of the window, blurred slightly by the light outside, but clear enough. Pale skin, tired eyes, lips that seemed to have forgotten how to rest in anything but stillness. "Where did you hear that?" she asked, her voice tight, controlled, but fragile underneath. "I didn't," Daniel replied. "I just see it." There was a pause, small but significant. Then the quiet sound of his chair scraping against the floor as he stood. She could hear his footsteps behind her, soft and careful, like he didn't want to startle her. "Look," he said, holding the paper up beside her. She hesitated before glancing down. "This is me," he pointed, his finger landing on the smaller figure with the big smile. "And this is you." His finger moved to the second figure. "The one with the straight line. No smile," he added, almost in a whisper. Emma swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. She wanted to laugh it off, to brush it aside like it didn't matter. To say something light, something easy, something that would shift the moment away from this uncomfortable truth. But nothing came, only silence. "Why?" Daniel asked. The word was so small. So simple. And yet it carried more weight than anything else he could have said. Emma turned off the faucet, the sudden quiet pressing in around them again. She dried her hands slowly on a towel that didn't need to be used, buying herself time she didn't know how to fill. Why? Because smiling had started to feel like pretending. Because somewhere along the way, joy had become something fragile, something temporary, something dangerous. Because she had learned, too well, that the higher you let yourself feel, the harder the fall could be. But how do you explain that to a child? How do you take something so complicated, so heavy, and make it small enough for him to carry? She couldn't. So she didn't. Instead, she crouched down in front of him, brushing a curl away from his forehead, her fingers lingering there just a moment longer than necessary. "Sometimes grown-ups just forget," she said softly. Daniel's brows pulled together. Forget what? How to smile. He studied her face carefully, like he was trying to decide whether that answer made sense. "But I remember," he said after a moment. Her heart skipped. "You remember what? You used to smile," he said simply. The words hit deeper than anything else had. Used to. It wasn't just something he noticed now. It was something he had seen change. Something he had lost. Emma's breath caught in her chest, and for a moment, she felt like the ground beneath her had shifted. She stood up quickly, turning away from him before he could see the way her expression broke. "Finish your drawing," she said, her voice quieter now, less steady. There was a pause. "Okay," Daniel replied, though there was hesitation in it. She could feel his eyes on her as he walked back to the table, hear the soft rustle of paper as he sat down again. The faint scratch of crayon against the page filled the silence, steady and rhythmic. Behind him, Emma placed both hands on the edge of the counter, gripping it tightly. Her shoulders rose and fell with a slow, uneven breath. She had thought she was careful. Careful with her words. Careful with her expressions. Careful not to let too much show. But she hadn't realized how closely he was watching. How deeply he was noticing. Children didn't need explanations. They saw patterns. They felt changes. They understood things adults tried to hide. And Daniel, he had been watching her for a long time. Long enough to remember who she used to be. Emma closed her eyes, her reflection fading from view as the light outside dimmed slightly, the day slowly slipping into evening. A memory flickered at the edge of her mind, laughter, bright and effortless. A version of herself that felt distant now, almost like it belonged to someone else. Someone lighter. Someone unafraid. Her fingers tightened against the counter. She had told herself it was better this way. Safer. To feel less. To expect less. To keep everything contained, controlled, quiet. But standing there, listening to the soft sounds of her son coloring behind her, she felt something shift uneasily inside her. Because it wasn't just her anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. And if he could see the absence of her smile, if he could feel it, then maybe she hadn't been protecting him at all. Maybe she had just been teaching him what it looked like to lose something. And never try to get it back. Her eyes opened slowly. She didn't turn around. Not yet. But the thought stayed with her, lingering in the quiet space between them. For the first time in a long while, the silence didn't feel safe. It felt like something that needed to be broken. That night, sleep didn't come easily to either of them. Emma lay on her side, facing the wall, her eyes open in the darkness. The apartment was quiet except for the faint ticking of the clock in the living room and the occasional passing car outside. Shadows stretched across the ceiling, shifting slowly with the dim light filtering in from the street. She had closed her eyes more than once, willing herself to rest, but every time she did, Daniel's voice echoed back to her. Why don't you smile when you look at me? It lingered, persistent and gentle, refusing to fade. She turned onto her back, staring up at the ceiling. Her chest felt tight, like something had been loosened during the day and now refused to settle back into place. For years, she had managed to keep everything contained, pushed down beneath routine, responsibility, and silence. But something about the way he had asked. Not accusing, not upset, just wondering. It had found a crack. And now everything she had buried seemed to be pressing against it. A soft creak in the hallway pulled her from her thoughts. She held her breath, listening. There it was again, small footsteps, careful and hesitant, like someone trying not to be heard but not quite succeeding. She sat up slightly, her eyes adjusting to the darkness. Daniel, she called quietly. The footsteps paused, then continued, slower now. A moment later, her door opened just a few inches, the faint glow from the hallway outlining his small figure. Mom, he whispered. She softened instantly. Come in. He pushed the door open and stepped inside, clutching the edge of his sleeve the way he did when something was on his mind. He didn't ask permission this time, he simply climbed onto the bed and moved close to her, settling beside her with a familiarity that spoke of countless nights like this in the past. Emma shifted, lifting the blanket so he could slide underneath. His small body curled against her, warm and steady, grounding in a way nothing else ever quite was. Bad dream? She asked softly, brushing her hand over his hair. He shook his head against her shoulder. No. She waited. I was thinking, he added after a moment. A faint, almost invisible smile touched her lips. That can be dangerous, she murmured gently. He didn't laugh. About your smile. The words landed heavier this time, in the quiet of the night where there was no distraction, no light to soften them. Emma's hand stilled in his hair. I told you, she said, her voice softer now, less certain. Sometimes I just forget. Daniel shifted slightly, tilting his head so he could look up at her. Did someone take it? He asked. She blinked, caught off guard. What? Your smile, he repeated, as if clarifying something obvious. Did someone take it away? The innocence of the question made it worse somehow. Because in his mind, things had simple explanations. Things were lost, or found, or taken. But what she carried didn't fit into those neat categories. Still, he wasn't entirely wrong. Her gaze drifted past him, unfocused, as something deep inside her stirred. No one took it, she said quietly. But even as the words left her mouth, they felt incomplete. Daniel didn't look convinced. You're not telling the truth, he said, not accusing, just certain. Emma let out a slow breath, her chest rising and falling unevenly. It's complicated, she replied. I'm not a baby, he said, his voice small but firm. You can tell me. There was something in the way he said it, something steady, something patient, that made it harder to deflect. Emma turned her head slightly, looking at him in the dim light. His eyes were wide, searching her face not for answers he could challenge, but for ones he could understand. And for the first time, she wondered if maybe he deserved more than half-truths. If maybe protecting him didn't mean hiding everything. Her fingers curled gently around his hand. I used to smile a lot, she began slowly, choosing each word carefully. All the time, actually. He listened without interrupting. Because your dad, her voice faltered, just slightly. He made things feel lighter. Easier. She swallowed, her throat tightening. He made me laugh, she added, almost to herself. Daniel's grip on her hand tightened just a little. I remember him a little, he said softly. That made her chest ache in a different way. A little is enough, she whispered. There was a pause. Then she continued, her voice quieter now, more fragile. When he went away, it felt like something changed. Not just outside, but inside me too. She hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't overwhelm him, words that could hold the truth without breaking it apart. It was like, the part of me that knew how to feel happy just got lost. Daniel frowned slightly. Lost where? Emma gave a small, sad smile. I don't know, she admitted. Somewhere I couldn't reach anymore. Silence settled between them, soft and heavy. Is that why you don't smile at me? He asked after a moment. The question hit her like a sudden drop. No, she said immediately, her voice sharper than she intended. She softened it quickly. No, never because of you. Then why? He asked, his voice quieter now. And there it was. The part she hadn't said yet. The part that had nothing to do with loss, and everything to do with fear. Emma closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. Because I was scared, she said finally. Daniel didn't speak. Scared that if I let myself feel happy again, if I smiled too much, something would take it away again. The words felt raw, exposed in a way she hadn't allowed them to be before. I didn't want to lose that feeling twice, she added. Daniel was very still. For a moment, she thought maybe she had said too much. But then he moved. Slowly, carefully, he climbed into her lap, wrapping his arms around her neck with a quiet determination. I'm not going anywhere, he said. The simplicity of it broke something open inside her. Emma let out a shaky breath that turned into a sob before she could stop it. Her arms came around him instinctively, holding him close, as if he were the only solid thing in a world that had once slipped out from under her. I know, she whispered, though her voice trembled. He pulled back just enough to look at her. Then you can smile, he said. It's safe. Safe. The word lingered in the air, gentle and unfamiliar. Emma searched his face, seeing nothing but certainty there. No doubt, no fear, just quiet belief. And something inside her responded. Not all at once. Not completely, but enough. Her lips curved slightly, hesitantly, like a movement she hadn't practiced in a long time. It felt strange at first. Unsteady. But then it grew, softening into something real. Daniel's face lit up immediately, his eyes bright. There it is, he said, almost laughing. Emma let out a small laugh of her own, the sound surprising even her. Tears still traced down her cheeks, but they didn't feel as heavy anymore. She held him close again, resting her cheek against his hair. In that quiet moment, something shifted, not fixed, not healed, but changed. For the first time in years, her smile didn't feel like something lost. It felt like something waiting. Waiting for a reason. And somehow, without even trying, her son had given her one.